This is a story that sounds like it's literally out of The Onion. There isn't any fighting here anymore, a Taliban commander says some fighters are worried they'll miss their chance at martyrdom now that they're in control. So obviously the Taliban were a rebel group for a very, very long time, for like 20 years, and now they are the governing operation in the country of Afghanistan. Those are two very, very, very different things. You go from being this rebel guerrilla warfare group, which is really scrappy and, just kind of unorganized, essentially. And then you go to having to organize and keep an entire country, essentially, running, right? I mean, obviously, the country of Afghanistan is going to collapse because they don't have an economy. They don't fucking have any money. Muslims don't even really believe in loans because of the interest clause. So without loans, you can't really have an economy in a capitalist sense. So there's not really going to be any sort of economy going on there. All the money that kept them going was essentially just humanitarian aid. But are they even going to get humanitarian aid as the Taliban are in power? Obviously, hopefully you guys know, Pakistan is the one controlling Afghanistan. Taliban is Pakistan. So, they're in control. That has really turned Pakistan off to most of the rest of the powerful world, essentially, at this point. But this really does read like an Onion article, but it's really interesting because they've really changed their roles entirely. So you wonder how they feel. It says, Taliban fighters are struggling to adjust to their new roles, maintaining security now that the group has regained control of Afghanistan after being ousted 20 years ago, the Washington Post reported. Fighters who were trained for roles such as suicide bombers are now running security in Kabul. Commander Abdulrahman Nifiz told the Post that the 250 fighters under his control were not used to the lack of fighting. All of my men, they love jihad and fighting, he said. So when they came to Kabul, they didn't feel comfortable. There isn't any fighting here anymore. And so obviously it's important to point out the difference between like rural Afghanistan versus Kabul, right? Kabul is a more populous area. It's obviously a more urbanized area. So life between rural Afghanistan versus Kabul is hugely different. So that's another thing as well. And so basically the fighters are essentially saying like they're worried they missed their chance at eternal afterlife. It says the Post reported that many Taliban members believed they were fighting a war that would allow them a, quote, clear path to paradise in the afterlife as they battled against people they deemed infidels. Many of my fighters are worried that they missed their chance at martyrdom in the war, Nifiz told the Post. I tell them they need to relax. They still have a chance to become martyrs, but this adjustment will take time. And so basically, they're saying that they're going to listen to their commanders and they're going to, essentially follow orders in terms of maintaining order, and they're trying to say that they're going to be nicer to people. But, obviously the country is going to entirely collapse. And what the solution for Afghanistan, I don't really know. I think at best for Afghanistan, you definitely would have maybe some kind of like federalized system where you have, it's not fully centralized and it's more, kind of like with the U.S. where you have federal government, but you have extreme power concentrated in state and local governments. Because there are many different, nationalities and languages and ethnicities in the country of Afghanistan. You have the Tajiks and you have, Pashto, you have Farsi. Like, you have all these different combating forces. Obviously, most people are Pashtuns in Afghanistan, but what the actual solution is, I'm not really sure. I don't know how popular the Taliban are going to be. I would say that the only real way forward would be some kind of revolution, but are the people in rural Afghanistan going to revolt against the Taliban? Do the rural, Afghans like the Taliban? I'm not really sure. I would imagine that the Kabulites fucking hate the Taliban because they just experienced like 20 years of like Westernism, and now they're coming in and doing their bullshit. So they'd want to, revolt, but if they revolt, it just seems like the only way is federalism. It just seems common sense to me at this point. Come on now, think about it. There's so fucking much difference in the goddamn country. So much. So you have to just have like federalism there, because Kabul is so different from like rural Afghanistan. So it's just the only way forward. And I doubt Afghans are really cool with Pakistan running their country, which is essentially what's going on right now. So, that's why I see revolution as inevitable. But if revolution happens in Kabul, what does that mean for the rest of the country? So it's a really weird situation. And obviously the hardline Islam of the Taliban is just, it's not going to do anything in terms of succeeding in any way, shape, or form. There's already a lot of brain drain going on where anybody who knows anything is leaving the country or has any expertise. So they just have mullahs, like in power in areas. It's just stupid. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And again, hardline Islam, it doesn't work with any sort of like capitalist economic system because, they don't believe in loans because of you can't pay interest on loans. So blah blah blah. I would say like the Muslim world in general is pretty backwards and pretty compared to the rest of the world. It's almost entirely a joke. So I think a lot of that has to do with the religion of Islam in general not being compatible with modern society, and also obviously oil has really ruined the Muslim world because now you just have a bunch of trust fund states that don't actually know how to make a real economy run, and so they make money off of oil, and that's their only fucking way to make money is just oil. That's obviously going to be extremely volatile, and when you don't earn your money, you just a country that happens to have a big oil supply, you're not going to be particularly good at having a good flourishing country. It's just not going to happen. So what the fuck is going to happen with Afghanistan? I have no idea, man. It's just a crazy situation.